start out today by telling you a story. I love to tell stories. Let's start out last Tuesday. It's 4:07 p.m. and we are in Tampa, Florida. We have a 67-year-old woman named Margaret. She's sitting at her kitchen table and she's got a cup of tea and her laptop is open to a Medicare comparison page. She has been putting this off for weeks, but today she's going to do it. Her kids have been bugging her, her friends have been bugging her. Today's the day. She's looking at all her different plan options. She picks the one that looks right. She types in her name, her zip code, her phone number, and she hits submit. And the clock starts. Here's what Margaret doesn't know. Margaret thinks she just asked one company for a quote. Margaret is wrong. Margaret just handed her phone number to a lead aggregator who's going to sell it to 5 different agencies inside the next 90 seconds. All right, it's 4:07 plus 30 seconds. The first phone rings. Caller ID says, might be Sarah Miller, because she had already gotten a text that went to her unknown senders folder from Sarah Miller. Margaret jumps. She wasn't expecting it that fast. She answers it and she starts talking to Sarah, who's actually pretty nice, and she confirms Margaret's information and she starts talking about coverage options. It's 4:08. Another call comes in. She glances at it. It says scam likely. Intelligently, she hits ignore. Now it's 4:09 and a third call comes in. She asks Sarah to hold, and then she clicks over and tells her new caller, John Davis, from a different agency to call her back. Now her tea is getting cold, and it's starting to feel like maybe this is a mistake. Now it's 5:12, 5 minutes later. Your agent finally sees the lead. By the time your agent dials Margaret at 4:17, in less than the respectable industry standard of 10 minutes, Margaret has already had a very real conversation with 2 of your competitors. She's already told one of them her husband's birthday. With the other, she's already scheduled a call back for Thursday. Your agent didn't lose that deal at the close. Your agent didn't lose that deal on price. Your prospect is not comparing policies. She's talking to the agent who called her first. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to my little story. My name is Jeannie Zames. I run marketing at VanillaSoft. The gentleman who's joining me today is Zach Miller, and he runs revenue. For the next 28 minutes, we're going to tell you something about the senior insurance market that's probably going to make you feel a little uncomfortable, but we think we can help you make it better. The senior you're selling to today is not the senior you were selling to a decade ago. Margaret, our friend in Tampa, is not the silver-haired archetype from your slide decks. She bought her last 3 pairs of shoes on Instagram, and you know what? They're pretty cool. She compared 6 dishwashers on her phone last weekend. She has more browser tabs open right now than you do. When Margaret went shopping for a Medicare plan, she didn't fill out just 1 form. She filled out 4 in 15 minutes, because that is how she shops for everything else. The boomer has gone digital, and the Gen Xer is right behind them, completely. We keep pretending that this has not happened because our org charts still look the same way they did in 2012. And those Gen Xers are starting to hit 60, believe it or not. However, the customer has moved. When the customer moves faster than the seller, something simple and brutal happens. The first seller there wins. Not the best policy, not the best price, not the most trusted brand. The first one. All right, we've got people joining us, watching this recording. I want you all to ask yourself a question. And you can say it out loud if you want, because we're not all in the same room. I want you to answer honestly. How fast does your team actually respond to a new lead? I don't want you to say what your dashboard says. I don't want to know what you told your board last quarter. I don't want to know the number your VP of sales quotes when a carrier partner asks. What actually happens at 4:07 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon in Tampa when Margaret hits submit and your agent is on another call and the routing rule fires and the CRM notification lands somewhere that no one is looking at? What is that real number? Most organizations don't actually know. And the ones who think they know are almost always wrong by an order of magnitude, because the number your dashboard shows you is not when your agent dialed. It is when your agent logged that they dialed. Those are 2 very different things, and one of them is probably fiction. So that's where we start today with Margaret, our 67-year-old woman who wanted to buy what you're selling, who actively raised her hand. All of us marketing people love that. And she said yes. And she almost certainly bought it from somebody else. That is what my team on the marketing side sees every single day where we live and breathe at the top of the funnel. We generate that lead, we hand it off, and we watch in the data as it evaporates. All right, Zach, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell them what happens when that lead hits your part of the funnel.
Thanks, Jeannie. Well, let me tell you what happens. That new lead lands in your CRM. The system fires a notification, maybe over Slack, maybe on email. Maybe it's a little alert in the corner of a screen. The agent, who, by the way, is on the call with somebody else, sees a flash on their second monitor. They don't pick up immediately because they're in the middle of closing the call that they're already on. Then 3 minutes pass, they go by, they finish with the person they're talking to, the email that they're sending. They maybe stand up and stretch their legs, go grab a glass of water from the kitchen. They come back, they finish, they look at the queue, and now there's 4 new leads in there. They pick naturally the one that's on top of that list. That's not failure. That's not laziness. That's not bad management. That's what a good agent does on a normal Tuesday. And it's also why Margaret's deal is gone. I want to show you a number. This is the most important chart in sales, and almost nobody in the industry is looking at it. This is the contact rate of an inbound lead plotted against how long it takes you to call them back. The original study behind this chart was done by James Aldiard at MIT in 2007. Yes, 2007, 19 years ago. In 19 years, nobody has gotten different data. Multiple firms have rerun it in the last few years, same shape, same cliff, every single time. 19 years, the data's not budged. Here's what the data says. If you call a lead inside the first 5 minutes, your odds of contacting that prospect at all are 100 times higher than if you call them after 30 minutes. Your odds of qualifying that prospect, actually getting them into a real sales conversation, are 21 times higher in the first 5 minutes than after 30. Not 21% higher, not double, 21x. Now, I want to do some math with you, and don't worry, this is easy math. This is CRO. This is sales math, eighth grade math. Let's say the average cost of a lead is $50. And let's say that you're calling those leads an hour after you get them, which, I mean, quite honestly, is not horrible. Like, if every lead that we got called within an hour, I would be really surprised. It's not bad, but at the median rate, if you're calling them after an hour, is going to be under 1%. But let's be generous and call it 3.5%. 3.5% of those you actually get a hold of. That means if you're paying $50 per lead and talking to 3.5% of them, you're paying $1,400 per actual conversation that you're having. You're not paying $50 per lead, you're paying $1,400 per conversation for a lead that somebody else has probably already talked to and has probably already written a policy on because they were there first. Now, some of you are doing arithmetic in your head about your own lead budget. Don't stop. Keep doing it. The number is one that should be keeping you up at night. Now, here's what's interesting. When we ask sales leaders in this industry what their response time looked like, the number that we usually get is some version of, we're pretty fast, or it might be, we've got an SLA on that. You know, we say we have to call within 1 hour. Or number 3, let me check with my ops team. Translation, we don't actually know. And we'll let them off the hook because it's actually it's not easy to track, and there hasn't been great research on what are the averages across the B2C world. We do know in B2B, however, that the average benchmark for an inbound lead response for B2B, so this is somebody raising their hand because they want to buy a new software platform, or they're raising their hand because they need a new business loan, or they're raising their hand because they want to talk about a lease on a new office, right? Is somewhere between 15 and 40 hours. inbound, a hot prospect who literally raised their hand and wants a call, wants somebody to call them and talk to them and give them information and close them. 40 hours. If we apply this back to Margaret's case, it's Wednesday afternoon. Her teacup was washed last night and put away. Her plan's bound. Her checkbook's closed. She's out of the market. She's done. She's not going to think about this for another year. And here's the part of this that's hard to say out loud on a seminar that's going to be out there for the whole internet. It's statistically very likely that your team is one of the teams in that benchmark. And it's not because you don't care. It's not because your agents are bad. It's not because your tech is broken. Because the dashboard that you're looking at is not measuring what you think it's measuring. The number that gets reported to your leadership is the number after the agent logs the dial, not when the lead arrived, not when the agent saw it, when they remembered to market. The first time we measured this on our own information, our own leads, our own inbound, we had to look at the number twice, then a third time, and then we had that tell the analytics team to rerun it because I couldn't believe that was actually what it was, but it was. So the numbers don't lie. We're all leaking. Some of us a little, some of us a lot. Jeannie, why is this so hard to fix?
Well, let me tell you, sort of, because it's actually really hard to say. And honestly, I have been part of the problem. I'll own it. I have stood at marketing leadership offsites for over 15 years, and I have pointed at exactly the dashboard that Zach just put on that screen. And I said, Zach, can we talk? We need the sales team to be faster. I've written speed to lead SLAs into vendor contracts. I've built scorecards. I've sent very strongly worded emails on a Tuesday morning when response time slipped. Every one of those things treated speed to lead as a willpower problem. Speed to lead is not a willpower problem. I want to walk you through what actually happens for one of your agents in those critical 5 minutes. The lead arrives somewhere, CRM, notification, maybe an email, maybe that funky Slack noise, maybe a pop-up on the corner of their second monitor. The agent is already in a mid-call. They finish and they open up their queue. Now they have a decision to make. Actually, they have to make 6 decisions. They start with, which one of these leads do I work first? Have I called this person before? Has somebody else on my team called this person? Is this prospect on the do not call list? What carrier program is this for? What is the script I'm supposed to use? Is there a script? Should I call? Should I text? Should I email? Should I do all 3? And most important, should I cut off the call I'm on or should I finish it? 6 decisions for every lead times 50 leads in the queue on a Tuesday afternoon during AEP. Kind of makes your head swim. Your agents are not slow. Your agents are making multiple decisions constantly, cognitively, while they're also supposed to be charming and consultative and compliant. We've built the last decade asking them to do this faster. We built dashboards that shame them when they don't. And we've run training sessions and enablement programs on urgency. And you know what? The response time has not moved. Speed to lead is not a motivation problem. It is a physics problem. You cannot out-discipline an inbox. You can't out-grit a queue. You cannot coach an agent into simultaneously being in multiple places at once on a Tuesday afternoon when 6 leads land in the same minute. The math just doesn't allow it. And it's basic math, whether it's CRO math or scientific math. And we have been asking them for years to do something that the math just doesn't allow. So here's what I think we owe our agents. The agents in your call centers, they're elite. They know the products. They have empathy with seniors that takes years to build. They can handle objections that would make a B2B SaaS rep cry. And I spent a lot of years in B2B SaaS. I've seen that. They are sprinters and they are drivers. And we've been asking them, hey, we know you're really fast, but can you run on grass and in street shoes? And we're not going to give you any starting blocks and we're not going to give you a track. You don't have a coach. You don't get any recovery time. And then I'm going to start bugging them to explain how come they're not running a 4-minute mile. This is on us, the marketers, the sales managers, the agency owners, not on the agents. We have to stop asking them to run faster. Zach, show them what this looks like.
We got to give them a faster car. Let me show you the car. There are 3 parts of this machine that let your agents run at the speed of the modern buyer. Just 3. We've seen enough organizations try this enough ways, and every time it works, it looks like this. We call it speed triad: ignition, rhythm, handoff. I want to tell you what each one of those is and why each one matters and what happens when you get them wrong. Ignition. Ignition is the moment between a lead arriving and the first action firing, the first dial, the first text, the first anything. In your manual operation, ignition is minutes to hours. 4 people, multiple systems, unknown time to first action, because it's got to hit a spreadsheet, that's got to be put to a thing, that's got to be sent to a thing, that's got to get somebody to do a different thing. In a system that's built for this, ignition is 0 decisions, 0 people, 0 wait. The lead lands, the next best action fires. The SMS has been sent. The agent's phone is already ringing the prospect before the agent has even registered that the lead exists. Let me be specific about what 0 decision means, because it is easy to nod past, easy to breeze past. It means the system knows before the human knows which agent should get this lead based on skill, schedule, compliance, history, availability. It means the routing decision is made, the DNC check is done, the context is pulled, the cadence is selected, all before a human touches it. When ignition is right, your agents don't start the work. The work starts them. The best operations we've ever seen take the lead from arrival to first agent action in under 5 seconds. Consistently, not on a good day, every day, 5 seconds. So rhythm is what happens after ignition. The cadence of touches that keeps firing until the prospect engages. Text, no reply. Call, no answer. Text, no response. Email, voicemail drop. Redial 90 minutes later. Different time of day tomorrow. Nurture at day 4. Resurface at day 10. None of this is rocket science. It has been written in every sales playbook for 20 years. The difference between teams that hit their number and teams that don't is not the design of the cadence. It's the execution of the cadence, the consistency, the persistence, not missing day 3 because the agent took a long lunch. Rhythm is lap times. You don't win a Grand Prix with 1 good lap. You win it with 60 consistent ones. Now, I need to tell you something funny story that the data taught us, and this is something I wasn't expecting. We work with a customer in the for-profit career retraining industry. They are obsessed with speed to lead, exactly the way everybody listening to this right now should be. When we first built their system, they were calling their leads in under 5 seconds, sub 5, which by every piece of research that I've ever read should be the promised land, it should be nirvana. It was not. And here's why. Because when they were connecting an actual dial inside 5 seconds, their prospects picked up, if they picked up, were picking up confused and a little bit weirded out and a little bit unsettled. It was like, wait a second, how do you already have my number? Is this a scam? Their contact rate actually went down at 5 seconds. It was worse than it had been at several minutes. So there's a cliff. There's also a floor. It turns out that you want to respond fast enough and in a way that makes the person receiving that contact believe that it's real and that it's not a scam or some sort of weird surveillance event. So it's not always about going as fast as possible. Sometimes it's about making sure that the human on the other end can believe it. That's rhythm. So that brings me to the last and the most important movement, and that's the handoff. Handoff is the moment that the system stops and the agent starts. The prospect engaged, the phone connects, the reply comes back. At that moment, 3 things have to be true. The right agent's on the line, the one whose skills match, whose licenses match the state that needs to be dealt with, etc. The full context is on the screen, who this person is, what they ask for, what's happened so far, and the agent is ready. Not starting cold, but briefed, warmed up, present. When handoff works, your agent doesn't make a call. They step into a conversation that's already theirs. Everything the system did before this moment was done so the moment could belong to that human being. The agent is the closer. The system is the reason they get to have that closing conversation at all. The F1 pit crew doesn't win the race. They put the driver in position to win the race. Everything that we build in sales operations, in revenue ops, in every piece of tech, every workflow, every cadence exists to put your agent in front of that human who's ready to buy. That's the whole job. Ignition, rhythm, handoff. Most of your teams are doing one of these things pretty well. Some are doing two. Almost none are doing all three. And the ones that have built the whole machine are the ones that are taking the share your team is losing. That's what the car looks like. So Jeannie, tell them what to do Monday.
All right. Monday morning, you've heard this cool presentation. You walk into your office, you turn on your computer. As is always the case, every morning you have tons of emails waiting for you. And some version of this presentation is there, but it's also starting to fade. I know how this works because I've sat and listened to presentations like this, and I think, yeah, I'm motivated. I'm going to get this going. And then I let the session fade before I actually take the action. So before you go, Zach and I are going to give you 4 numbers, and we're going to give them to you specifically, and we're going to hand them to you together.
2 from the marketing side, 2 from the revenue side. And here's the twist. Jeannie is going to give you the numbers that the CRO in your life, the sales leader in your life, should be asking for. I'm going to give you the numbers that the CMO in your life should be asking you for. Because if you only measure your own side of the hallway, you're never going to see the leak.
All right, marketers, let's start with us. The numbers, your CROs, the Zachs in your world, the numbers they need from you is not MQLs. It is what % of my inbound leads were touched by a human inside 5 minutes. Not attempted, but actually touched.
Revenue leader, the number your CMO, your VP of marketing, your marketing leader needs from you is not the close rate. It's the contact rate gap between a lead worked in under 5 minutes and a lead worked inside of an hour. If you can't pull that number Monday morning, that gap is the first thing you need to fix.
All right, marketers, our second number. What is the cost per actual conversation? Not the cost per lead, not the cost per MQL, and we reference those a lot, but the cost for every phone conversation your agent actually had. And when you get that number, if that number horrifies you, good, it should. And then go find the ones you paid for that nobody ever called. Those will scare you even more.
So last, contact rate by lead source, not close rate, contact rate. The gap between your best source and your worst source is usually where a lot of the leak is living, and not many people are looking at it.
All right. Before we go, let's go back to our good friend, Margaret. Look how happy Margaret is.
Listen, Margaret's a composite. This is obviously not a real person, but there is a version of her on your agent's screen right now. There's a version of her on your competitor's screen right now. And somewhere in the next 4 minutes, an agent, yours or theirs, is going to reach out to her.
The difference between which one reaches her first is not who has the better product. It is not who has the better agents. You know that. Your agents are amazing. They are elite. The difference is whose machine gets those agents to her first.
Your agents are ready.
So, Monday, give them a faster car.
Then get out of their way.